future. But at the same time, I know now that even though my life's coming to an end in a few years, the next generation or the generation after, we're right on the threshold now of pure space travel. And the way those unified equations work and the double cycles and how you can manipulate time, and there's no such thing as a maximum speed of light. There's no limits. It's the time base that do. And the reason there's no difference is time is a reciprocal of gravity. Now, if you look at the gravity tables, they change from the equator up to the pole. Gravity is not a constant over the Earth's surface. Well, if light is a reciprocal of gravity, as gravity changes, light changes and is reciprocal. So every time you take a step in latitude, as small as it may be, the speed of light changes. But your whole body changes. Everything you see changes. Your measuring instruments change. So when you're measuring the speed of light anywhere in the world, the relativity factor comes in and you measure exactly the same value, which appears to everybody in science that the speed of light's a constant. It's not. It's changing all the time. And right through the universe, it's changing wherever you go. And every planet you go to, the speed of light is different. Time is different. And you go to a planet like Jupiter, which to us is a gaseous planet. In reality, we're seeing a gaseous planet, but if you got on Jupiter, that same minute of arc value in those equations is exactly the same, works exactly the same, but it's got a different time base. And the geometrics are different. And you'd be different, you'd be more nebulous too, but to you it might even appear solid. So what we see is not quite true. And this is the way everything is working. It's marvellous, really. It's bugged me, and I've never mentioned, I said about this in one of my books, but I never called them the three black men, which have been talked about in other areas of the world. These guys turn up and they try to get you out of the place and take you places and that. So I thought, well, okay, I've had a bit of a visit with these three black men. So these are the type of things that were happening, to me as I was going through and finding things, and quite interesting. But there's another thing was happening too, that I was invited into the American Embassy a few times by the air attaché in Wellington. And I'd visit him as I'm passing through on flight, so if I had time there while I was staying there overnight, I'd go and say hello. And he was a really nice guy, he's a colonel. And he was very interested in what I was doing. And one of the meetings I had, he said, "Oh, would you like to go to Wright-Patterson Airfield in the States?" He said that they're doing, work there 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's staffed by the top scientists of the world. And this is where they sort of researching into UFOs and stuff. And I said, well, you only got to ask me and tell me when. I'm sure I'd like to go. And later it turned out that they'd vetoed it. I didn't get there, but I knew then that the work was going on. I'd heard before, up to this time, that there was Wright-Patterson was involved in it. So that was another indication to me that these guys were well ahead of what I was doing, and they were dismantling these things and finding out how they worked, and they didn't know it all. I don't know how much they knew in what I was doing in geometric mathematics, but they must have worked it out somehow. In the classical mathematics, you cannot find these things I've found in gravity, light and all the combinations in classical physics. You have to convert everything like that into geometric and harmonic physics and harmonic mathematics, and then everything works together. And you can manipulate, and we had a trip to England years ago, and this is after I'd found most of this stuff, and we met a scientist there, and he said, do you know, he said, in net mathematics, you can do calculations on a page of A4 that takes 10 pages in classical physics and classical mathematics. And I thought, gee, how simple it was. And the whole thing is simple. I'm definitely not a genius, I'm not a brain, I'm an ordinary average New Zealander. And I think the only reason I found any of this stuff is I've been persistent and not letting anybody divert me from what I'm trying to find. And as I said before, if I'd gone to university, I would have been brainwashed and I wouldn't even looked at this. But I've been at this now for 40 years, and I'm still finding things that'll be never ending. And I can see what the future's going to be. I can see what sort of a world we can have, and that world will be completely free for energy. You can tap energy directly out of the atmosphere from the gravitational field. And I found in my work that gravity is not a force, and they're trying to find a gravity wave. And gravity, from what I can see from my equations and things, is relative motion in space. And you can get the feel of gravity when you go up in a lift, and it's only relative motion. If you go up fast on the lift, you feel the force on your feet, like gravity. If you go the other way, you can go in free fall and just about lose all gravity. And that's all it is, relative motion. And this has led me into all other things when I'm checking things. And there was one particular harmonic I found when I changed it. When I changed the gravity values out of the textbooks, physics books, into geometric measure, I progressed until I got that value in minutes of arc per grid per square, square second, grid second. And the answer came out around about 695 was a harmonic. And I started getting noticed at that stage, the 695, what it was. And it wasn't until years later I find that what I'd found in gravity and the harmonic of 695 was the reciprocal of light. And I found that the gravity and light are reciprocals of each other, and the mathematical reciprocals. So I found out then how a UFO can manipulate those waveforms and frequencies. They're manipulating light frequencies and like radio frequencies, and by doing that they're manipulating gravity because they're reciprocals of each other. Anyway, I knew he didn't quite know what to say, so I started sort of chuckling and talking to him, and I said, look, you've got a problem, haven't you? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, you've got to offer me a job. And is that the purpose? And he said, well, actually, yeah. He said, if you come with us, he said, you and your family will never want the rest of your lives. And I thought, well, that's nice. And I said, okay, if I say yes, where'll I be? Can't answer that. What'll I be doing? Can't answer that. How much are you going to pay me? Can't answer that. He said, if you say yes, we'll tell you everything. And so anyway, I told my wife, Wendy, and what he was saying, and straight away she said, no way. And I said, well, we better think about it, because I must admit in those days, I knew what they were doing behind the scenes. I thought, boy, if I only knew what they knew. And I was tempted, and I thought we'd never want again. And thinking about it, I thought, no way. Now, if I sign those papers, no way can I talk publicly. I can't talk to anybody. And I said to this guy on the phone, 2 days later I rang him up and said, no, I can't do that. And he actually patted me on the back in some way, and he didn't really want me to say yes. And I said, well, if you more or less think that way, why don't you get out yourself? And he said, the repercussions would be too great, that within 1 week he probably wouldn't exist. So I thought, hell, do you want me to join you? No way. I think there's been a small group right through history, known history, it's been handed down to these small group of secret societies, and it's always been there. And the only reason they haven't used it like they did, they didn't have the technology. So what do? They have a war, they get all this fast technology going, and everything goes boom. So we've got more great big jump in technology, and you get things going on all around the world. You have little jumps in technology, and suddenly they're pouring all this money into all this types of science until they've got to the stage where they can actually produce these things again with the technology, but they had to get it there. And they couldn't make a motor car like they do today in 1930, and now they can make it automatically. They've got everything, nobody in there, they've got people making, machines making cars, putting it together. We didn't have that technology. So this is where we're right back to all this knowledge that was in the ancient past is now coming out, and now reality in our future. And they are creating a future for us further on, but only the elite know. Why should they be the only ones that know? We want to know. The public want to know. And the public know that something's going on, but they can't figure out what in the hell is it. Why won't they tell us? Why is there so much chaos? And we don't need wars.